And you are now on live.
Thank you, Aisha. Good evening, everyone, to this evening's FBS Chat. Our special guest is Hannelore. Is it Volkkaert?
Volkkaert. Yes.
Volkkaert, yes. So Hannelore is joining us tonight as our special guest. My co-hosts are Wendy and Ella. Thank you for joining us this evening. Before we get on to your specialism, Hannelore, I always ask our guests how they first came across the solution-focused approach. And
sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, before we do that, can you introduce the co-host?
I have. Ella and Wendy.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Yeah. So, Hannelore, how did you come across solution-focused brief therapy?
It's a long time ago, I remember now. It was 2006. So I'm getting old. And in that time, I was working as a school counselor. And I don't know, maybe ladies, you don't know, an orthopedagoog, do you have an English translation for that? The studies I did was like special education wise, but especially when there are educational problems, not schools, but also in families and kids with all kinds of problems. So that was what I studied. And I worked in foster care and in special youth care. And then I became a school counselor in a big classical school with Latin and maths, and so the heavy studies. So I had a really different population than I was used to. And there were a few girls with eating problems, and the one I remember was a girl in the 6th grade, and she came in and she sat down and she said to me, Miss, I think I have an eating disorder. And I was like, oh shit. And I had to think how I knew from theory how to take her from point A to B, or where B should be. How do you do that in conversations? Certainly for a topic like that, because it's quite, how would you say, they say what they want, but they don't do what they want. And it's quite complex. So I thought I need something more. And then really in a technical way, how can I get in a conversation someone from A to B, knowing that she has to want to go to B? Mm-hmm. And I think I was in search for about a year for an education. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And I remembered once a workshop a few years before that I followed, and I came across the Bruges model. You ever heard about the flow chart of the Bruges model of the Korzybski Institute? And there was a guy who gave a workshop for school counselors. And the Bruges model was the capstock, the
backbone.
The backbone. Thank you, Wendy. Frame. So I was looking for the notes of this day, and I remember in the pause I went to the guy and I said, "Where did you go? Where did you get this education?" And he said, "At the Korzybski Institute." And I said, "Say again." Korzybski Institute, where is that? Was this for a name? And so a few years later, I went to Bruges in 2006, and I think the first few days were like, oh, now I have an excuse to do more of what I'm already doing. So, yeah. I thought I'm working too intuitive or just doing stuff, but apparently there was some useful things, so that was a perfect match. Yeah.
So what was it about those 2 days that made you think, maybe I need to change the way I'm working or the way I view clients? What was it in particular that stood out?
I think one of the first lessons we got was all people have autopoietic capacities, because we had some lessons from Korzybski, and he was real fond of Milton Erickson. And we got a lot of the things we learned were very, very, very suggestive. And that was like so fundamental, respectful also. I remember I said, okay. And the way it was, they knew why they were doing what they were doing. It was grounded, or there was some scientific evidence for this easy way of working with people. Easy to comprehend, not easy to do. That's something else. So yes, and I think in my education in Leuven, at the University of Leuven, we were also a bit solution-focused trained, but it wasn't called like that. We had a very pragmatic education and way of working with families.
And you mentioned that you recognized in these first 2 days, you recognized a lot from what you already did from your intuition. How did that, what you learned at the Korzybski Institute, contribute or changed or confirmed your intuition? What impact has it had on working from your intuition? Could you keep on doing what you were already doing with an extra sauce on top of it, or did it change things? What happened?
No, it was a bit more self-confidence I got. So just to like how would I say, jump in with 2 feet in, like just go in and not less doubting or less just doing it more like firmly. How would you say? So this is what I got from it in the beginning. And then, of course, you have to practice. I can remember the first time I asked the miracle question. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Tell us about that, Hannelore.
Yes.
Because I've seen the miracle question in action with families where it's almost like a tango where they interact with each other, and the smiles that come on people's faces. How did you find your first miracle question?
I was a student I knew since a few years, and I asked her, and she was like not wanting to answer whatsoever. I was like sweating and thinking, "Oh my God, what now?" And I remember one of she didn't have a really good relationship with her mother. And one of the things she said was, I would say hello in the mornings to my mother. And then in Luke style, I said, you would say hello to your mother then in the mornings? And she said, I'm not promising to say hello to my mother. Yeah, this was what happened. And then I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
So, in terms of, because you said something about the sixth grader with eating disorder, and knowing that maybe I needed, I don't know, a different way of interacting with this client. When you look back on that client, knowing what you do now about solution focus, what would you have done differently? How would it have changed what you did, how you interacted?
I think it's, I don't remember her, another, in the case on sich, but I think I would even, yeah, it's always the same for me, going slow, sorry. I'm going even slower and even more slow. But for me, I think I'm very appreciative in my way of working, and that was also what was very nice to learn in the first days, and to see that you can work like in a more positive is not a good word, but more constructive, engaging, believing in the person wise, not problematizing. So that's what really attracted me.
Mm.
Hannelore, may I ask? I have this wonderful book of yours. What was the first time when you had your encounters with people with autism, and when did you think, well, I really want to write for others so they can read what I am doing? Yeah.
I think I had some affinity with autism beforehand, because when I was working in the foster care, I remember a foster mom with I think 2 kids of herself and then a 4-year-old in foster care, and he was quite difficult behavioral wise. And I went to hers a few times, and she said some stuff that I was thinking, I think this kid is autistic. That must be autism. And I remember myself going to the team meeting, but I was like 27 years old, young, and remembered saying, I think this kid has autism. And it didn't land very well in that team meeting, because I was the one coming with a problem, and where did I get the idea of, okay, I'm not a diagnostic, so okay. And then there's another story when I went to Korzybski Institute, and you are in a therapy education thing, then you have to practice conversations. So you have to have topics. And my topic was my son. My son is born in 2001, and he was nearly, and there's also an English word for that, I think, cradle dad, they say in Dutch. So he stopped breathing when he was 6 months old, and he had some oxygen deficit. Yeah, with all kinds of epileptic thing following, and also some behavioral issues a few years later. So Els Matelin, friend, she was already working with people with autism, and for her it was quite an uitdaging,
challenge.
Yes, to have the mindset we were learning at the Korzybski Institute, with the very suggestive way of working, Ericksonian-wise, we've learned from Luke, and she was challenged in thinking on how can I do this with my autistic clients already from the start of the beginning. And we were like 4 years together in this education. And you have also always students where you work more with than others. So my son was quite often the topic of the conversations when you are practicing. And I remember in the 3rd year, because when he had this like say accident, it's like you have before, you have after, and you have something real concrete that you think, okay, this caused, and all of it is caused by oxygen deficit. And in the 3rd year, Els was very, very, very nicely saying all of a sudden, Hannelore, don't you think he's autistic? And then it was like, ooh, okay. So it's one side of the story, and at the other side of the story, so we started doing some workshops together, and because Luke asked, because Els was thinking about her concept, and she already had the concept, and I was a helper to write a nice, readable book. Els is quite schematic in her thinking, and make short sentences, and so she needed some oxygen in her book from somebody who knew solution focus, somebody who had some expertise on autism. So it's really a work of myself, and the real expert is Els. Yeah. And now I just in her slipstream.
Yeah, she's in your practical slipstream, perhaps. She's in your practical slipstream. You practice with your son every day.
Yeah, but also the concept, the booklet is something, we wrote together, and then we made the translation. We do workshops together.
And you do workshops for parents, for counselors, for who are these workshops? Who attends these workshops most of the time?
At the Korzybski Institute, we do yearly module on how to work solution focused with autistic people, and then on demand also a lot of educational people who are in support teams.
So I think there's a lot of literature out there that might say that solution focus wouldn't work with someone who is on the spectrum. Hannelore, what would you say to those people, those misguided people? What would you say?
I think it's a perfect match, but I know why they will say it, because if people know something about autism and know something about solutions focus, the future-oriented way that think people with autism aren't able to think future-oriented, and that's bullshit whatsoever. You have to adapt your questions, but you just ask for the same things, just not so broad or not so. For me, I would say it's a perfect match, because you make a pragmatic, like a plan. You have a goal, you know what direction to go, you know what you already did, you know what's working, you do more of it, you do experiments, you look for feedback loops, you do more of what works, and if it doesn't work, forget it. It's a perfect match, because it's this concrete and they can take it. It's not thinking with a lot of difficult words and using schemes, and that's what I would say.
Would you say then that you're translating of solution focus in to use within this concept of within autism, that it strips solution focus to the real core, to the core essences of solution focus, and that you have to make it very hands-on, very simple. Also the questions. Is it a stripped version? Maybe it's not the good term, but
we get a lot of questions on how you apply solution focus technical wise with people with autism. It's not about techniques. Of course, you have to adapt a bit of the way you ask questions, but the only thing we say is use less words. That's it.
Yeah.
Use less words, make shorter sentences. Yeah. The real thing that works is the stance you're in as a counselor or a therapist. You're really respectful, you're curious as hell, you want to know how they see it, and if that's the way you start, people with autism tend not to be this bizarre as they are, or they appear for us to be. They have good reason to do what they do. Just follow the line of thoughts. It's not that crazy. Integendeel, Wendy, help me.
On the contrary.
On the contrary.
Wendy, you're doing brilliant translation. I was just wondering, Hannelore, about the language we use, and we get referrals, and if you read a referral, you would think this young person is a monster, but it's getting to know that person beyond that referral. And I guess autism is no different. It's getting to know the person beyond that label. What is it? Because I'll give you. I was working with an autistic young person and his mum, and one of the things she said was, he comes out of bed 11 times a night at least to kiss me goodnight. He just wants to kiss me goodnight. So I said, okay, so what would be a reasonable amount of time for him to? And she said, maybe 4 times. So we kind of had this conversation with the young person present. And what happened was he would come down. He would still come down 11 times, but he would kiss her 4 times. He would count it. So the language that we use is so important, isn't it? Because he was doing what he felt was what we'd asked him to do.
Great.
So in terms of the language that we use, how can we, because unfortunately a lot of young people on the spectrum may get excluded from school because it's just seen as bad behavior. We've just not understood this young person. How can we have conversations that will get us somewhere, that would make, we need to understand how they communicate, I guess.
Yeah, and if I can jump in, I was a teacher in a previous life, a teacher in secondary school. And so we had there some pupils with a light degree of autism, but there were, in the last years that I was a teacher, there were really rules or things to help them. And one of them, I realized that how helpful it was sometimes to have someone with autism in the class, because it helped me so much to make things more clear, more structured for everyone. So it made me realize, like, oh, it's how to make things really clear. It helped me a lot, because indeed I had to be so clear for them, and I copy pasted that clarity to the rest of the class. So it has brought me, as a teacher back then, it brought me a lot, I must say.
For me, that's a difficult one, because that's the issue that Elsa and I talked for hours. Because first of all, if you have expertise in something, you have the hammer and everything appears to be a nail. You have to be aware of the biases you have from that. Secondly, it's a bit difficult, an issue for me to be the expert or to have expertise, knowing you work solution focused. I would say you have to have at least a bit expertise in autism to really get it a bit in your fingers or feel what it is. Every kid is different. Every interaction with parents is different. It's always it's also interactional, also educational. You know, a lot of parents want to take care of their kids and then go a bit too far in understanding the difficulties, but they have to educate too and set boundaries and be clear, and with all the difficulties they have, like tantrums and stuff like that. So it's this, and then on the other hand, a lot of things, conversations with people with autism, because to answer your question, Joe, it's not always about looking for change through these conversations. That's not always the agency place. If you adapt some things in the context, maybe there's more agency there. And it's always the bigger picture and the co-construction of what you can do. I think to be able to work therapeutic, like in an ambulant setting, one-to-one, there's got to be a few skills to make that work really, because the client has to make some transfer to their own situation. It's not a simple one, not for people without autism, but especially for people with autism. So this kid, I would wonder if he understands enough why he would go less downstairs, where he's up from his mother to go less than 11 times to kiss her goodbye. And maybe I would be interested why it has to be 11 times for him. What's the meaning behind this? A lot of things is automatization, of course, and habit, but maybe there's something else. And then you get something to hook on. I don't know. But in language, We have a lot of fun here at home, language-wise, with our yeah. He's 20 now, and he's doing great, for just for.
I think that one of the main things for maybe a lot of us is getting to know the person in front of you. We know that they have the label of autism, we know they're autistic, but actually getting to know that person and being client-led, using the language that they feel comfortable with, knowing what makes them tick, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and kind of being open to those conversations to then start working with them. And it's exactly what you said before. You can still have solution focus or whatever focus conversations you want. You've just got to make it and turn it into a way that they will understand you. Because one autistic person is not the same as another autistic person, just as we're not the same. So each time you still need to get to know the person in front of you to then, for us, as the experts in asking questions, but not in the experts of anything else in their life, is looking at what might they respond well to. And if they don't, we just need to explore a little bit further and change our language.
At the other hand, it's also a good thing that you can be a bit understanding about their way of thinking, because there's another way of thinking behind.
Yeah.
I went to the brief summer school a few years ago, and I got a present from Harvey, a book. But you guys know it. In England, it's apparently a play, The Curious Incident of the Duck in the Nighttime.
Yes.
It was a really great eye-opener. It's just a romance. It's not something educational, but this is the kind of thinking that's behind, and it's such a nice way to see and to be able to understand what's going on. It's so well written.
Can you show it? Because I didn't see it.
Curious Incident of the dog.
Of the dog and the night.
Oh, I have to. So it's translated in Dutch also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So these kind of books can help, not all scientific literature, to know how it works.
I was just curious to know, I've met some autistic young people that have absolutely amazing knowledge that I would never be able to accumulate. I spoke to a young lad who I think he was 10 or 11 years old at the time, but he knew every train station on the London Underground. Not just every train station, but what line, if it was Piccadilly, Leicester Square,
Jesus.
if that train station had a lift or an escalator. I thought he was absolutely amazing. What amazing things have you that constantly surprise you, I guess? I don't know.
I once heard from and it was an older boy. He was like 16, and if he heard the song played on the radio, he could play it on his piano. And not that he was a very, very skilled piano player. And asking him, how do you do that? And he said to me, I can see the music in my head. And music is like math. So he could see it, how it works. So it works differently. That's the first story I was thinking about. At the other hand, they sometimes would say that people with autism have not enough, let's say like that, social feelings, and that's right. At the other hand, a lot of the high functioning people, sometimes I watch and I think, I would not be surprised if there's something autistic, but it's not a problem for me. But if they come in a team, in an organization, they like scan the thing and they can immediately say, this, there's going wrong with that, that's wrong with that. They can just, and they're I think they're right most of the time, and they're autistic. And that's a skill. It's like the canaries in the mine.
Yeah.
They're the first to feel or to know or to, they don't know what to do about it, or they don't know really good what do I do in this and how do I behave myself. But the analyze of, in this story of what's going wrong, or what are the things that would go better, or what would be a good idea to work on, they so accurate most of the time.
Very sensitive in specific areas. Yeah. Wow.
Wendy.
With so talk about that with so much passion and so much drive. So you really, it's great listening to you when you tell these stories, because we first met in person on the Soul World Conference in Budapest in 2019. I think that was the first time, and that's really something that I really link to you. This drive, this passion, and I see it again when you talk about this. Now, this is much more than what you do, isn't it? It is really who you are and what you really do from within, isn't it?
I don't know.
Would you want to do that? I can't do. At the other hand, sometimes I like an elephant in a porcelain closet. How do you call it? Also, if you are this, I have a temperament. And that can be very positive, and I have a drive, and sometimes it's too driven. But I can't do things with like my rem op, hand rem. With brake that doesn't work for me.
Wow.
If you had all the possibilities in the world, what would you like to see for yourself to do in
possibilities in the world?
Yeah, and well, focus it on solution focused things.
I would think about, because if I had all the possibilities in the world, it must be amazing to be able to earn your money whilst singing, I guess. Like that. Or acting or playing and having fun. So that was what happened. So I have said it. So now I can think of the other thing in solution focus. I think for me, it's always about being able to work together with likewise enthusiastic kindred spirits. And what it's about, of course, it has to be solution focused. You can't do it otherwise. You guys know it. But the topic, just apply it together with people and enjoy yourselves and have lots of fun.
How important is it, Hannelore, especially with children with autism, to highlight their strengths and abilities? Because we get at least 25% of our clients are young people that are acting out, being the behavior is one of sometimes violence, where they're just not understood. How important is it that we understand their world from their point of view, because it's a completely different world from what we would understand as being neurotypical, I guess. How do we teach others to look beyond that label and look at that person and what their strengths are?
There's a few answers to that. Thanks, Joe. It's a good question, because I think everybody is very open, or it's helpful to have positive feedback and to have some compliments. You see people with or kids with autism grow even more if they get some positive feedback. From my experience, maybe because I see more of them, but even more, and you can really see it, them growing and enjoying the positive feedback they get. It's like coming in more than neurotypical kids, that's for one. So being very appreciative. At the other hand, it's giving them useful information, because we as parents and educators tend to say, don't do this, don't do that, don't get into the chair with your shoes on. Yeah. And if a kid thinks about once in a while to put the shoes off or sit on his bottom, we don't see it. And we tend not to put a feedback on that. So they need feedback loops on that. Now you're sitting on your bottom, on the chair. This is very good from you. They know, like, that's what I have to do. So it's like training, call it puppet training. Yes, they have need even more for these positive feedback loops, informational wise. If it's about getting tantrums and be aggressive, there's a link with stress and stress level. Yes, it's all about stress at this point. They are stressed, stress is building up, and they get triggered once or a few times, or what's going on, to explode. Yeah, that's the explanation. At the other hand, it's not because you're autistic that you can get aggressive. Don't do it. Point final. It's not okay, and it's forbidden. Yeah, you have to search for other solutions if you get overstressed. And then you come into the context thing, because most of the times the explosion follows a few triggers, like parents who don't stop. Just stop. It has to be stopped. Every Wendy prikkel.
Yeah.
Wendy?
A trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like you have noises, you have what you smell, you have what you feel. You call it what?
Sensory
what?
It's like a sensory overload or something like that they have at that point. So it's not useful to try to change the behavior then. Yeah, the timing is also important. First, it has to, don't put any more stressors on top of that in that situation. Yeah, the conversation comes afterwards or beforehand if you have a plan, but not in the situation.
Can I?
And that is also what you then include in your workshops, Hannelore, like helping the context to deal with the behavior, like to not bring in overload of these triggers, etc. How to recognize signals. That's also what you also work with the context.
You know, in training, it's also a lot about getting to know the autistic thinking. We have a very, very simple way of there's something buzzing.
Yeah. That's a sensory trigger. Joe is causing overload to see how he would react.
I can't actually hear it.
I can hear a buzzing.
No, it stopped.
Oh, it's gone. Stopped. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I get it, because I think the English term for it might be when the young person is having a meltdown. We call it a meltdown, where it's almost like I need to do something different here, because no matter what I say, it's not going to make any difference. And like you said, Hannelore, it's waiting for that right moment and that right time.
Yeah. Anything that's been said or done in this moment, a lot of words are triggers. They have to go into that. They can't help themselves. If you say so the discussions otherwise tend to go on and on and on and on and on. And everything you say will be a trigger. I make it worse. So people, parents, educators have to learn that for a while. And my parents, like moms and dads, they know. They know, they don't. But yeah, they're people too. Okay? You get angry. Okay. Can understand you get angry and you lose your patience and yeah. And in trainings, Wendy, it's about explaining the autistic thinking, and then more about expliciting how do you use solution focused way of working, how do you adapt, scaling, how can you make it more concrete, or that kind of thing. That's more, yeah. Sure.
And I was just thinking sometimes, like, obviously with things like the miracle question. So anyone who knows a solution focused approach is, so, you know, you have to use a certain amount of imagination for that. And I know sometimes I still work with some brilliant autistic people, but they're very not understanding how, like, for example, I've got a young person that does not understand why no one else follows the rules to the letter in the school. It's a rule. Why doesn't everyone follow it? It doesn't quite, and it frustrates him all the time. And it's a difficult one to, so I'm just wondering, if there is a lack of imagination, how do we go around with the miracle question and imagining a future that's better or different?
What do you want for yourself? Any autistic people, men, women, kids, come answer that question.
Yeah.
And what the difference would it make? Also.
Yeah.
But don't start with miracles and stuff like that, because then they're off.
Yeah.
They hear the word miracle, and it's not the imagination then that works, but the fantasy. And if you get them into fantasy, then they're off. Oh, what do you want for yourselves? What would be better? What difference would it make? That's or more about tomorrow. And just suppose that would be the case. How would you notice? And then you just, what I would do is just feel a bit conversation-wise how far you can go with the sentences and the questions. And I'm even that good at it because I talk too much to my autistic clients. I use too many words. I'm not that good. My style for people with autism is not always this compatible.
Yeah. and you do say to give someone who may be on the spectrum that gap, that space to answer the question, because they're kind of trying to process it. So it's sometimes being comfortable with a bit of silence until it's, yeah.
There's a really good book, Hannalore, that you can...
Yeah, I don't know if you've read it.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And it's also in Dutch.
and also in Dutch, yeah. Ella, any questions that you would like to ask Hannalore, or comments?
Hannelore, they asked me, and it's a very nice question. I want to ask it to you also. Do you have role models working with autistic people, or working or training in the solution-focused world, or otherwise? Do you think, wow?
A lot of people, but if it comes to autism, that would be Els, of course, because I've learned everything. I've learned it from her. She really produced all the thoughts behind it. she had a therapy practice with like 5-6 therapists, and she really wanted to be working with people with autism because she saw and knew that there was a lack of for them to have some help if they are able to go on an ambulant or conversational therapy thing. And she needed, at a certain moment a few years ago, an extra therapist. And she asked me, do you want to work for my company? And I said, okay, but I'm not used to working with, I know not enough about autism, but I can't work with autistic clients, never done it. And she said, you can do it. You have only one rule. And I thought, okay, what's the rule? Never discuss with an autistic one. No discussions whatsoever. That was the only thing. And then she said, and use less words. Make shorter questions. And then role models in the solution-focused field, yeah, there must be a lot. And then you have role models for giving training, and then giving therapy, and then I don't have one specific one. I've learned everyone, and the really difficult thing is, how do you comprehend all of this and maybe make it your own style, or I don't know, because sometimes they are like diametrical different, that I think, oh my God, what can I do with this? Because there's worth in that, but I can't do it. There's like not verenigbaar, Wendy? No, Bella?
Compatible?
Wendy?
Compatible?
Compatible.
Really?
Yes. Compatible.
I knew that.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
I do have a question, Hannelore. Like you mentioned before, like you said that you sometimes use too many words in conversations with autistic people, etc. But what do you regard to be your strengths in working with autistic people? What do you consider to be your strengths?
I think my strength is being able for people to feel at ease, that there's no judgment whatsoever, whatever they tell me. Like when a client comes in after 4 or 5 sessions, and then he says, very shy, I think I watch too much porn. Yeah, okay, whatever. Why? What does it bring you? What difference does it make? That's just, if it's about this or about that. And I think that come in, you sit, and they get a really warm welcome, and something to drink, and or a coffee, or a tea, or water, whatever, and a cookie.
Great.
I think people feel that also everyone then treated like a really important human being. I not say to my clients, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you back," and they look at me like, "What's she saying?" I really mean it, because as a therapist, I wondered in the beginning if people don't come back. You're curious how you're doing, but can you send a text message? How it's going with you? I've tried it in the beginning, and most of the text message I received back was, "Oh yes, I should make another appointment with you." And then I think, no, that's not the reason I'm texting you. I should come again. No. I'm curious to know how you're doing, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work if you're in the role of a therapist. That doesn't mean that I can be genuinely curious about how they are doing now. So, and the shit thing is, They come back when they're not doing good.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I ask, how are you doing? And I know, wrong question. It's just to ask from person to person before I step in this therapeutic role. Hello. Long time no see. How you're doing?
So happy to see
you. So I make a joke of it. I think not that well, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Okay.
Yeah.
So the ice is broken.
But I think it's very important. Once you can form a working relationship with your client and have a bit of a laugh, because you've got to be yourself. They can read right through you if you aren't. Once you've kind of got them captivated and they enjoy coming to the sessions, they want to make those changes anyway. They're more eager to make those changes. And I really do think it is 50% of it is forming that relationship.
Me too.
Definitely.
I say it sometimes. What is your what you're doing? Psychotherapy? It's quite weird. Every time I pass through the hallway, I hear laughter. A couple went a few months ago for the first time. I don't saw them again. And and it was a sex thing. It was all about sex. And then at the half of the session, the woman said to me, "Are you always this pleasant?" I don't know, because if you are, we are coming back, I love that client.
I love that.
I was just going to ask. So we have. You say in your book, you talk a lot about what are limitations and what are problems that can be solved. And I think a lot of the families that we work with, the parents want the best for their child. They really do. But there are certain limitations, and they say, "Well, I don't know if that's the ASD or whether they're just being naughty or just being, obstructive." And I guess that's a really tricky line, isn't it, between what is possible and what is a limitation, I guess. How do you get through to parents who, I guess, want the best, want their child to, not sleep all night and go to school and come off the internet because that's the only place they have friends? It's a really difficult scenario. I just wondered how you manage that.
This is also an age thing, it's educational complexity, the interaction between parents and kids, the way the kids works, the thing that people do find very important in education, the norms, the values they want to give to their kids. If it's already this far, because I think and I believe that maybe the most difference we can make with any kid long term is younger. If the education the parents give to their kids is at the younger age, you really lay your fundamentals then. And then at that age, and it's the computer thing. I think it's not about baby steps. It's not about tiny steps. It's about millimeter steps. And seeing it as a process. It's also knowing that motivation works a bit differently with people and with kids with autism. Motivation is sometimes difficult because being motivated to do something for your mom or a relationship will never ever be a motivator or very difficult. So that's also the difficult thing in education. Sometimes parents don't get a lot back of their kids. It's always looking and searching for signs of he or she is gonna be all right eventually, or he or she is gonna be all right in life eventually. It will take a while. and look for signs of that.
Yeah.
Also a bit for the parents.
Yeah.
And laying whatever your expectations are even lower than the lowest you can imagine.
Mm. Yeah. Mm. Oh.
The strength sometimes of people with autism is that they don't need a lot. We tend to project some things we need to them also as a parent, and that doesn't help whatsoever. If a guy says to you, the only thing I need in life is food, I'm just imagining that, is food, sleep, and gaming, then you have to take it literally. That's the only thing he needs in life. What's he going to do in the long run to get food, sleep, and eat, and his gaming? That's where the motivational agency is, and really listen to them, and not discuss with this, because they have other references than we have.
Yeah.
Or
we can learn so much from others, especially those with autism. I love having conversations. I had a conversation with a young man who's 19 the other day, and I said, we were talking about the job centre, because he doesn't understand why he needs to be in employment, because his dad's working and they have money. You work when you need money to buy things, but he doesn't need that. And I said, what job does your dad do? He said, I don't know. And my immediate thought was, what do you mean you don't know? Luckily, I didn't say it, but that was my immediate thought. And I said, how come you don't know? And he said, I don't need to know. I know that he has a job. I don't need to know what it is, because it's irrelevant to him. Yeah. It doesn't really make a difference to his life that what his dad does. He knows his dad wakes up at 6 a.m. in the morning, goes to work, comes home, gives him pocket money on a Friday, and he's happy. And I thought, wow, it's, but my immediate thought was, what do you mean you don't know what your dad does?
Speaking of different perspectives,
it's he's a delight to work with. His delight. But we have actually come to the end, guys. So any comments from anyone before we close?
I was just going to ask Hannelore, what's left for you? What's in your bucket list? What would you like to do next? Because I think I don't know, but I know there's areas that too many young people are being excluded from mainstream education in this country, and their conditions are not being understood. It's just seen as bad behaviour. For me, I'd like that to change. I don't know about you, Hannelore.
For me, the topic is more relationships at this moment, like people or youngsters in their 20s. It's I'm thinking about doing something like a relational bureau. How do you call it? You match people, but you help to prepare the first dates. Facilitate the conversations so that they can get to know people, and not for a relationship, but maybe for what it's worth. So I'm thinking about doing something like that, not only for autistic people, but more like call it introvert or extreme introvert who have difficulty to take a first step. How do I start a conversation? Even when it's a text message, how do I do it? When you do matching, where you prepare the first, call it a date, but also where you give some psychoeducation about relationships, what works in relations, what do you tend to, stuff like that. But it's still...
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So that's everything is possible. That would be...
Yeah. So this time next year, Ella, Wendy, and Joe and I will be saying, so how is that project going?
Yeah.
It's embryonal at this point.
That's where it starts.
That's a stage after conception. So
I think a lot of youngsters have difficulties with this at this time.
Any comments, anyone, before we draw to a close?
I think this video is a very educational one for people who work with youngsters, others with autism. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
I also want to really like your authenticity. It's a confirmation of you. So it's thank you so much for this chat. I'm very happy that I could be a co-host in this chat with you. Definitely. And congrats on Joe and Aisha again for picking out a great story.
I was going to ask you a really stupid question, Wendy. Do you find, because I know you work a lot with horses, and I've often heard, that animals have diabetes and arthritis, and you think, oh, that's a human condition. Are there autistic horses, Wendy?
Yes.
There are? No.
Yes.
Of course there are.
How do you know?
How do you know? It's not about diagnosis, but it's about. It's really about. This how to make it short, to the way in which they are also focused in their own world. Yes, we do have autistic horses.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't classify them as autistic horses, but there are horses with autistic behavior. Tell it that way. Yeah.
Oh wait, that's another FBS chat title just there. I like that.
Yeah.
And they're also different in communication and interaction.
Yeah. Amazing.
Wow.
They tend to bite me.
I like it.
It's been a really, been a real pleasure. I've worked, me and Aisha have worked with a lot of young people that are on the spectrum. I don't see it as a disorder. I see it as they just see the world differently. They're special in their own right. Let's find out what that is. Let's see what their strengths are. And talking to you today, Hannelore, has just reinforced that with me. And I hope educators and everyone else takes that on board. So thank you. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No worries.
Thank you for joining us, Wendy, Ella, and Hannelore. We've really been looking forward to this conversation tonight. We met you in Sheffield. We love you then, and we love you even more now.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant. For everyone that is watching, tomorrow evening we have Marco Matera joining us from Italy, Joe's friend. Two Italians live at the same time.
Come on, Italy in the Euros. Come on.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
Wow.
A lot. So if I could just ask you guys to stay there for a minute, and everybody else, we'll see you tomorrow.